To be honest, boxing's never seen nothing like this in the history of boxing. Since it began 250 years ago, it's never seen anything like this. I believe this is going to be great for boxing. I believe we're going to win.
He's going to have, after the fight is over, then so be it. I'm already in a no-win situation anyway. To me, it's a win-win. But I'm in a no-win because if I knock him out fast in the first round, they're going to be like, oh man, this wasn't worth it. If I let it go a few rounds and drag it out, they're going to be like, oh man.
I've always been in the gym training. I'm boxing professional fighters. I'm just, activity is great. I had 15 fights in 1 year when I was younger, and I think activity is great, but I'm prepared. I'm just ready.
Floyd Mayweather and Mike Tyson just had their most intense face-to-face confrontation yet. And what happened behind closed doors has the entire boxing world questioning whether this fight is actually going to happen. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and both legends were throwing verbal haymakers that might have done more damage than anything they'll do in the ring. But here's what nobody's talking about. This whole heated exchange might have been orchestrated to distract from some serious problems brewing behind the scenes. Because while everyone's focused on the drama between these two icons, there are major red flags suggesting this entire spectacle could fall apart before it even begins.
Even bring that shit up no more.
No, they should bring it up. Okay. They should see the difference from there to now.
Gotcha.
The confidence radiating from Floyd during this confrontation was something else entirely. He's walking into these meetings like he's still the undefeated king of boxing, talking trash with the same swagger that made him $50 million per fight in his prime. But get this, sources close to the situation say Floyd's confidence isn't just about his fighting ability anymore. It's about something much bigger. He knows something the public doesn't know yet, and it's giving him leverage in these negotiations that's making Tyson's team sweat. You can see it in his body language, the way he's carrying himself. This isn't the desperate cash grab some critics are calling it. Floyd's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers, and what he revealed to Tyson in that private moment has completely shifted the power dynamic of this entire deal.
To me, it's the biggest event in the history of events right now. There's never been any bigger than this. So what they have to say about that?
What does that say about you if you lose?
Well, I'm not gonna lose. So I can't even fathom losing. I can't even imagine it. I think he thinks this is gonna be a very easy night. It's not gonna be an easy night.
Now Mike Tyson's response to all this intensity tells a completely different story, and it's honestly shocking how sharp he looks right now. His trainer, Rafael Cordero, just dropped a bombshell that's got everyone reevaluating what we're about to witness. He's claiming Tyson is in better shape now than he was for the Roy Jones fight, which already surprised the world with how good Mike looked. But here's the kicker. Cordero isn't just talking about physical conditioning. He's talking about mental sharpness, ring awareness, and that killer instinct that made Tyson the most feared heavyweight in boxing history. The sparring footage that's leaked from camp shows Tyson throwing combinations with bad intentions, moving his head, slipping punches like he's 30 years old again. And the scary part, he's sparring with guys half his age and making them look ordinary.
On cruise control, go out there, have some fun, and do what I do best. And that's beat Floyd Mayweather.
But hold up, because Jeff Mayweather just revealed something that changes everything we thought we knew about Floyd's motivation for taking this fight. According to Floyd's own uncle, this isn't about money, legacy, or proving anything to critics. It's about ego, pure and simple. Jeff says Floyd has always thrived on playing the villain, but the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson event did something to Floyd that nobody expected. It ate at him. Here was his biggest rival in the exhibition space, Mike Tyson, getting all the attention, all the headlines, all the Netflix money, while Floyd was relegated to fighting social media stars in smaller venues. Jeff Mayweather believes his nephew simply cannot accept being overshadowed, and this fight is Floyd's way of reclaiming his position as the king of boxing spectacles. The problem? That kind of ego-driven decision-making has destroyed more boxing careers than actual punches.
The fighter's waiting for his money. By the time he gets his money, everybody else took their percentage out already. So you don't know who's who. You get what they give you.
You look good. How you feeling physically?
Incredible.
You've been training?
Listen, I was wearing an extra large. It looks like I will wear a large.
And speaking of ego, Tony Jeffries just called out the real reason Floyd's coming back. And it's not pretty. According to the former Olympic medalist, Floyd's return is purely driven by his inability to accept that someone else is getting the spotlight he believes belongs to him. The Jake Paul versus Tyson event generated massive numbers, global attention, and positioned Mike as the elder statesman of boxing entertainment. Meanwhile, Floyd's been doing exhibitions in smaller venues, fighting influencers, and watching his cultural relevance slowly fade. Jeffries believes Floyd saw those Netflix numbers and couldn't stomach the idea that Mike Tyson was getting the respect and financial rewards that Floyd thinks should be his. It's a dangerous mindset for a fighter, because when you're fighting for ego instead of sport, bad things happen. You take unnecessary risks, you ignore your team's advice, and you end up in situations that could damage everything you've built.
Tyson, if the fight was next Saturday, you will be ready. We talk about Roy was 4 years ago. Today, Mike is much better than he was when he fought.
The training footage that surfaced from both camps tells two very different stories, and what we're seeing from Floyd is genuinely surprising even his harshest critics. At 47 years old, he's moving with the same sharpness and precision that defined his prime years. The speed is still there, the footwork is crisp, and when he's working the heavy bag, you can see the power and technique that made him the most successful boxer of his generation. His camp is releasing this footage strategically, showing Floyd looking youthful, focused, and dangerous. But here's what's really wild: multiple sources are saying Floyd looks better now than he did for some of his recent exhibitions. The question everyone's asking is whether this is just good camera work and selective editing, or if Floyd has genuinely found another gear at this stage of his career. Because if he's really moving like this consistently, Mike Tyson might be in for a much tougher night than anyone expects.
Okay, I'll be right.
Good. Round one. Oh, phew. Cut the ring. Exactly. Cut the ring. Exactly.
Now here's where the story takes a turn that nobody saw coming, and it involves some serious concerns from people who actually know what they're talking about. Boxing analyst Henry is raising questions that have a lot of fans uncomfortable, and honestly, his points are hard to argue with. He's looking at this trend of legends coming back for exhibition bouts and wondering if boxing is losing its soul in the process. You've got Manny Pacquiao potentially facing Ruslan Provodnikov, Floyd linked with Tyson, and a whole parade of former champions lining up for Netflix paydays. Henry's argument is that these fights are driven entirely by financial opportunity rather than sporting necessity, and he's worried about what that means for the sport long-term. But here's the part that really stings. He's questioning whether these older fighters fully understand the risks they're taking, or if the money is just too good to pass up.
It's easy, because Floyd always was the bad guy. Once again, he's gonna be the bad guy. And I think that if there's any way to try to...
The Netflix factor in all of this is absolutely massive, and it's changing the entire landscape of how these spectacle fights get made and promoted. The platform has cracked the code on generating enormous viewership numbers by focusing on mass appeal rather than traditional boxing audiences. They're not trying to satisfy purists or hardcore fans. They're creating events that casual viewers will watch, share, and talk about on social media. The Jake Paul events proved the formula works, and now they're applying that same strategy to legends like Floyd and Mike. But here's what's concerning some industry insiders. Netflix is so focused on the spectacle and the numbers that the actual quality of the boxing becomes secondary. They're essentially turning these fights into entertainment products rather than sporting events, and that shift in priorities could have serious consequences for everyone involved.
Make as much money as we can while we can, and then get out of the sport. But with these two, they're multi-millionaires. And I want to get into the tail of the tape and talk about exactly the records and all of that stuff with it. But first, I just want to say, I believe that these are doing this for different things. Mike Tyson is doing it purely for the money. Purely for the money. Floyd is doing it for the money as well, but also I believe Floyd's doing it for that limelight. You've seen the numbers that Mike Tyson, Jake Paul got, and I think this is the most viewed fight of all time. Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. I might be wrong in saying that, but I'm sure it was. It was hosted on Netflix. And Floyd's been one in the past with his ego that he wants to just, be in that limelight all the time. And when you're not in the limelight all the time, you...
But wait, it gets even more complicated, because Oladipo just raised some serious questions about whether this fight is actually going to happen at all. The timing of the announcement has him puzzled, and when you really think about it, something doesn't add up. They announced this fight in February for a September date, which gives them 7 months of promotion. That's way longer than the typical 3 or 4 month cycle for even the biggest fights. Depot thinks this extended timeline suggests either they're planning the most ambitious global promotional campaign in boxing history, or there's uncertainty behind the scenes that they're trying to work through. And given all the egos, money, and logistics involved in making a fight like this happen, that uncertainty could easily turn into a complete collapse of negotiations.
Hook right here. Right hand hook. Hook here. Hook right here. Slide and drop. Punch it, wait till help you go. Drop, drop. Walk it, walk it, walk it. Pitch it. Pitch it. 6. Pitch it. Pitch it. Watch it. I step back like I have my distance. That's why I step. See, I have my distance. Fighters don't know their distance. You gotta know your distance.
Here's where the money aspect gets really interesting, and it's not what most people think. Wade Plemons just shut down all the rumors about Floyd having financial troubles, making it clear that Mayweather isn't desperate for cash or struggling to pay bills. The headlines claiming massive debt are apparently exaggerated and misleading. But here's the thing, even though Floyd isn't broke, this fight represents a massive payday that's impossible to ignore. We're talking about potentially the biggest single-night earnings of his post-retirement career, with Netflix money, international broadcast rights, and sponsorship deals that could push the total well into 9 figures. Plemons frames this as a calculated business decision rather than a desperate cash grab. But the reality is that when this much money is on the table, it changes how everyone approaches the situation. Fighters take risks they might not otherwise take, promoters make promises they might not be able to keep, and fans get sold a product that might not deliver what's advertised. The health concerns surrounding this fight are real, and they're coming from people who genuinely care about both fighters' well-being. Multiple boxing experts have gone on record questioning whether it's wise to put 2 legends in their late 40s and 50s in the ring together, even in an exhibition format. The worry isn't just about immediate injury risk, it's about long-term brain health, the cumulative effects of decades of fighting, and whether the entertainment value justifies the potential consequences. These concerns become even more serious when you consider that both Floyd and Mike have nothing left to prove in terms of legacy or accomplishment. They're already legends, they're already wealthy, and they're already secure in their place in boxing history. So the question becomes, is the risk really worth it for what amounts to an expensive exhibition match?
On Mike Tyson of all people, I mean, that's the most money-motivated thing I've ever heard. It's utterly bizarre. And I don't want to see Mike Tyson anywhere near the ring again, especially after that Jake Paul fiasco. This whole thing's incredibly weird. I don't like it. I'm a proper boxing fan, and these fights to me, this OAP stuff they've got going on when they bring back these old fighters for one more go at each other, it's just not something that I particularly enjoy. Now look, it's going to be on Netflix. It's probably going to be a massive event. I'm probably going to end up covering it because they are two former champions of note and it is going to go on their professional records. But if you thought the first fight wasn't particularly entertaining, I can't imagine this one's going to be much better. The one thing I will say is that I believe Pacquiao's in better condition than I realized after the effort he put in against Mario Barrios.
At the same time, Henry admits
Johnny Nelson recently provided some insight that adds another layer to this entire situation, and his perspective as a former champion gives it extra weight. He's acknowledging that despite their age, both Floyd and Mike are still displaying remarkable skills in training. Floyd's speed and precision continue to surprise observers, while Mike's power and intensity remain genuinely intimidating. But Nelson also understands the human side of why legends make these comebacks. It's not always about money or ego. Sometimes it's about family responsibilities, maintaining relevance in a sport that moves on quickly, and the simple reality that fighting is what these men have done their entire adult lives. The problem is that understanding the motivation doesn't eliminate the risks, and it doesn't guarantee that what we see in training will translate to what happens under the bright lights with millions of people watching.
Because Mayweather's not had a proper fight in such a long time, which you could argue means he won't be as sharp in the ring. But then on the other hand, Pacquiao's had way more fights than Mayweather has, so you could argue he's got less left in the tank. It's difficult to figure out what it means for either guy, and we don't really know which way it's going to go. But I guess, if I'm being really honest, as much as I don't love it, there's always going to be a little bit of intrigue there. Kind of don't like myself for it, but I'm just being honest with you guys. And I think if we want to have a real conversation about what this fight represents is a continued frustration around the truth about the first fight, which was that it came too late and it turned into more and more of a cash grab. This fight embodies that to a whole new level. Even for the broadcaster Netflix, I don't believe they're truly invested in the sport of boxing. They'll take one-off big events that get them more subscribers, that increase their revenue, that increase their subscription base, but they don't really care about the sport. If they did, they'd be putting on a lot more events than just these mega fights that involve, influencers and fighters that are well past their best.
So here's where we stand with this whole situation. Two of boxing's biggest legends are talking trash, training hard, and positioning themselves for what could be the most watched exhibition fight in history. Floyd's moving like he's still in his prime, Mike's looking scarier than he has in years, and Netflix is ready to throw massive money at making this spectacle happen. But underneath all the hype and promotion, there are serious questions about timing, motivation, and whether this fight will actually materialize. The 7-month promotional window suggests either incredible ambition or behind-the-scenes problems. The money involved is so massive that it's changing everyone's risk calculations, and the health concerns from respected voices in boxing are impossible to ignore. This isn't just about two fighters stepping into the ring, it's about the future of boxing entertainment, the role of streaming platforms in combat sports, and whether legends should know when to stay retired. So here's my question for you, drop it in the comments. Do you think this fight actually happens, or are we watching an elaborate promotional campaign that falls apart before fight night? If this breakdown of everything happening behind the scenes helped you understand the real story, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell because this situation is developing fast and you don't want to miss what happens next. I'll see you in the next one.
There was also talk about Floyd Mayweather versus Mike Tyson in the Congo. Is that now scrapped? Why are they announcing this several months before the event? I mean, is it a massive build-up? I mean, when you think about it, most fights are announced 3 months, 4 before an event. This one, September. We are in February, people. Like, what is going on? I mean, what are Netflix doing? Netflix are kind of, obviously they're picking up and putting on really random stuff. Like Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano. If you are an MMA fan, that fight was supposed to happen way more than a decade ago. Way more than a decade ago. They're doing it now. Will it get big numbers? I guess it kind of will. They've obviously done the Jake Paul stuff. Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. Jake Paul versus AJ. They done massive numbers. Crawford Canelo, a serious fight, and then they're doing this.
But here's what's really got me thinking, and this is something nobody in the mainstream boxing media wants to talk about. We're potentially looking at a complete paradigm shift in how combat sports operate, and Floyd versus Mike might be the tipping point. Traditional boxing promoters like Top Rank and Golden Boy have spent decades building the pay-per-view model, charging fans $60 to $80 for big fights and splitting revenue with cable companies. Now Netflix comes in and says we'll pay you $100 million up front, put it on our platform for free to subscribers, and market it like a Hollywood blockbuster. That's not just competition, that's disruption on a level that could reshape the entire industry.
Massive, massive Floyd fan. Like, my journey into boxing, obviously when I was young, it was very much Mike Tyson, but then it went and became a UK thing. The ITV days of, I don't know, Ben Eubank, etc., Michael Watson, and then eventually Joe Calzaghe, Prince Nassim, etc., etc. My reason for going back and watching American boxing is solely down to Floyd. Like, I was obsessed with everything Floyd Mayweather did. I thought he was a genius when it comes to marketing and a genius in the ring. Like, it's very rare that the two go together, which is why I think everyone kind of fell in love with Conor McGregor, right? Because Conor McGregor was a genius outside the ring in terms of how to sell a fight. And in the octagon, he actually proved that he can fight as well. Floyd, obviously on a completely different level, but you know what I mean? Very similar. Someone that talks the talk and walks the walk. And Floyd most certainly did.
The ripple effects of this approach are already being felt throughout boxing, and it's creating tension between old-school promoters and these new streaming giants. Eddie Hearn recently hinted that traditional boxing economics might not survive this transition, because when platforms like Netflix or Amazon start throwing around 9-figure guarantees, it makes the old pay-per-view split model look outdated. Fighters are starting to ask why they should take financial risks on pay-per-view buys when streaming platforms will guarantee massive paydays regardless of viewership. But here's the catch: streaming platforms aren't charities. They're making these investments because they believe combat sports content drives subscriber growth and retention. The moment these exhibitions stop delivering those results, the money disappears, and we could see a lot of fighters who turned down traditional deals left with nothing.
Athletic achievement.
That Floyd Mayweather had financial troubles because of the money he owed to the IRS, because of the terrible, terrible business and real estate investments that he's made, and apparently some of these have gone under, and he is owed back rent, or he is owing back rent, and he is delinquent on a lot of payments for a lot of different things right now. These things seem to have added up for Floyd, and now it's pretty apparent that not only is he doing these, bank robbery style exhibitions, but it looks like he absolutely needs to do it, which is very, very sad. Listen, I'm not the biggest fan of Floyd Mayweather as an individual outside of the ring, but I never want to see athletes have their money mismanaged or mismanage their own money so badly that they go broke in retirement, and it looks like that's kind of what's happening. And here's a snippet from Business Insider because it made me want to pay for the entire article.
What's fascinating is how differently Floyd and Mike are approaching the psychological warfare leading up to this potential fight, and their strategies reveal everything about their current mindsets. Floyd's playing his classic role, the calculated villain who says just enough to generate headlines without crossing lines that could derail negotiations. He's treating this like a business transaction that happens to involve punching, staying composed, and letting his team handle most of the promotional heavy lifting. Mike, on the other hand, is tapping into that old savage energy that made him must-see television in the 80s and 90s. When he talks about this fight, there's genuine intensity in his voice, like he's trying to convince himself as much as the audience that he's still that destroyer who terrorized heavyweight divisions.
And brand.
Mayweather's attorney strongly denies he's any kind of financial distress, but the headlines aren't slowing it down. $54 million alleged dollars in debt. So it makes sense why they would want to do this, and it's strictly for money, let's be honest. This is a clear money grab, but this is going to be a terrible fight. This is not going to be a fight that anyone outside of watching Mike Tyson walk to the ring and the idea that maybe he'll knock out the little guy in Floyd that Tyson for a long time didn't like. For a long time called Floyd a small little angry man or a small little scared man because he couldn't walk his kids to school by himself, mainly because Floyd had, he kind of disrespected Muhammad Ali, who was Mike Tyson's favorite fighter and one that he would never put himself above. But Mike's 60 years old, and if there was a time for Mike to get him and knock him out or whatever, it never would have happened because they were in completely different weight classes and XYZ. If you wanted to settle it outside of boxing, that's one thing, but now they're stepping into this exhibition. There's not going to be any weight classes, obviously.
Ariel Helwan.
The training philosophies we're seeing from both camps couldn't be more different, and it's highlighting how these two legends have evolved in completely opposite directions. Floyd's approach is all about preservation and efficiency, maintaining his natural gifts while minimizing wear and tear on a body that's absorbed relatively little punishment over 25 professional years. His team is focused on keeping him sharp without pushing him to dangerous limits, understanding that Floyd's greatest asset has always been his boxing IQ rather than raw physical attributes. Mike's camp is taking the exact opposite approach, and honestly, it's both impressive and concerning. They're pushing him through training sessions that would challenge fighters half his age, focusing on explosive power and that intimidating presence that made him famous. The question is whether a 58-year-old body can handle that kind of intensity without breaking down.
Economic times, there's economic challenges. These corporations and companies, they're looking to make profit. And if they put out a pay-per-view, and a lot of people, another thing is the fighters. I'm blaming the fighters too, because there's a lot of guys, they're not bigger than the fighters of yesteryear. That's why you can have a Floyd Mayweather and a Mike Tyson, whose brands are so big. This is going to be a big fight. It's going to be, just because it's a freak show, circus fight, whatever you want to say. Some people are going to be mad at it. I don't want to see it, blah, blah, blah. But the curiosity is always going to get the best of the masses, especially if they put this on Netflix or Amazon or whoever, right? And that's the reality. A lot of these new fighters, Gen Z fighters, people under 30, they're not marked.
Roy Jones Jr. just weighed in on this whole situation, and his perspective carries serious weight because he's actually been in the ring with Mike recently. According to Roy, the version of Tyson he faced in their exhibition was significantly better than anyone expected, but he also noticed subtle signs that Mike's reflexes aren't what they used to be. The power is still there, the intimidation factor remains real, but those lightning-quick defensive movements that kept Mike safe during his prime have slowed down just enough to be noticeable. Roy's concern isn't that Mike can't still hurt people, it's that he might not be able to protect himself the way he once could. And when you're facing someone with Floyd's precision and timing, those tiny defensive gaps can become major problems very quickly.
Then you're going up against Floyd Mayweather. This guy was unbeaten as a fighter. He still physically has ring craft. He still physically can move about the ring and do what he has to do. I think for Mike Tyson, he's going to be very frustrated. He will want to lay a shot on him to get rid of him, but unfortunately, you slow down. Father Time gets the better of us all, and even though I think when it comes to a fan's favourite, I'm quite sure most of the fans would love to see Mike Tyson put Floyd in his place, and that's probably what will be the attraction as well. But you've got to remember, Mike Tyson's 59 years old. You've got to remember, Floyd Mayweather is still hitting the bag in the gym. He's still moving around, even though he's 48 years old. But you've got to remember, these guys are individuals, their fathers, their brothers, or whatever. And they still want to earn a massive chunk of money. Where's Mike Tyson? Whatever they're getting paid. Where's Mike Tyson at 59 going to earn this kind of money? Where's Floyd Mayweather at this time of life going to make this kind of money? It doesn't matter what we say about legacy. These guys are still going to live. These guys are still thinking, you know what, I'll take the heat, I'll take the criticism, but you know what, my bank account's all right, my family's all right. And I know it's crude, and I know it takes a shine off it, but that's real talk. So these guys are now in a position where where people want to pay them a lot of money to fight each other. It's against somebody they don't like. So again, ego's going to get the better of common sense with Mike, as far as I'm concerned.
The international market for this fight is absolutely insane, and it's driving financial projections that make even seasoned boxing executives do double takes. Floyd remains one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet, while Mike's global brand has somehow grown stronger in retirement than it was during his active career. Netflix's reach in international markets means this fight could potentially be watched by more people than any combat sports event in history. We're talking about audiences in countries where traditional boxing has never had significant penetration, casual fans who know these names but haven't watched a fight in years, and younger demographics who discovered Mike through social media rather than his actual boxing career. The advertising and sponsorship opportunities are so massive that companies are reportedly offering deals that exceed what most active champions make in their entire careers. But let's talk about something that's making a lot of people in boxing very uncomfortable, and that's the precedent this fight sets for other aging legends. If Floyd and Mike can generate this kind of money and attention, what's stopping other retired champions from following the same path? We could be looking at a future where every major boxing star from the past 30 years tries to cash in with comeback exhibitions. Imagine Oscar de la Hoya versus Shane Mosley, or Lennox Lewis coming back to face Evander Holyfield again. The financial incentives are so strong that we might see a parade of legends putting themselves at risk for paydays they can't resist. And here's what's really troubling: each successful exhibition makes the next one easier to justify, creating a cycle where retired fighters keep pushing the boundaries of what's safe and reasonable. The medical protocols surrounding this fight are reportedly more extensive than anything we've seen for exhibition matches. But some experts are questioning whether any amount of medical supervision can truly make this safe. Both fighters are undergoing neurological testing, cardiovascular evaluations, and comprehensive physical examinations that go far beyond what's required for typical exhibitions. The Nevada State Athletic Commission is apparently developing new guidelines specifically for aging legends, trying to balance public interest with fighter safety. But Dr. Margaret Goodman, who founded the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association, recently pointed out that no medical protocol can eliminate the inherent risks of putting two men in their late 40s and 50s in a ring together, regardless of how many doctors are watching from ringside. Here's where the story takes another unexpected turn, and it involves some behind-the-scenes negotiations that are apparently more complex than anyone realized. Multiple sources are reporting that Floyd's team is demanding specific contract language that would give him significant control over how the fight is marketed and promoted. He wants approval over opponent interviews, veto power over certain promotional activities, and guarantees about how he'll be portrayed in Netflix's documentary content. Mike's team is reportedly pushing back on some of these demands, arguing that equal partnership means equal promotional control. These might seem like minor details, but when egos this big are involved, contract disputes over seemingly small issues can torpedo entire deals. The sparring partners both fighters are using reveal a lot about their respective strategies and expectations. Floyd's brought in younger, technical boxers who can replicate different styles without trying to take his head off. He's essentially treating this like preparation for a high-level chess match, focusing on timing, distance, and ring generalship. Mike's sparring sessions are reportedly much more intense, with partners who aren't afraid to bring real pressure and force him to respond to genuine threats. Some observers think this approach shows Mike is taking the fight more seriously from a competitive standpoint, while others worry he's pushing himself too hard for what's supposed to be an exhibition. The difference in preparation styles might tell us everything we need to know about how each fighter views this event. Social media reaction to this potential fight has been absolutely wild, and it's highlighting some interesting generational divides in how people view combat sports entertainment. Younger fans who discovered both fighters through highlights and social media content are overwhelmingly excited, treating this like a fantasy matchup come to life. Older fans who watched both men in their primes are more skeptical, questioning whether this exhibition can possibly live up to the hype, or if it's just exploiting nostalgia for financial gain. The middle demographic fans who remember both fighters but aren't purists about boxing tradition seem most conflicted. They want to see their heroes one more time, but they're also concerned about watching legends potentially embarrass themselves or get hurt for entertainment value. The undercard for this event is shaping up to be just as interesting as the main event, with Netflix apparently willing to spend massive money on building an entire evening of entertainment rather than just focusing on Floyd and Mike. Rumors suggest they're trying to book other legend versus legend matchups, current champions in showcase fights, and even some crossover celebrity boxing matches to maximize the event's appeal to different audiences. This approach makes sense from a streaming perspective. They want to give subscribers multiple reasons to tune in and stay engaged for the entire broadcast. But it also adds another layer of complexity to an already complicated event, with more personalities, more egos, and more potential points of failure. What's really interesting is how this fight is being received by current active champions, and their reactions reveal some fascinating insights about modern boxing culture. Some top fighters are openly supportive, viewing Floyd and Mike as legends who have earned the right to cash in however they choose. Others are more critical, arguing that exhibition matches featuring retired fighters take attention and money away from active champions who are trying to build their own legacies. A few have even suggested that if Netflix is willing to pay this kind of money for exhibitions, they should be investing similar amounts in current champions who are still in their competitive primes. It's creating an interesting tension between boxing's past and present that could influence how the sport develops over the next few years.